Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, the podcast where we delve into the world of CMS systems and their crucial role in website and web content development. In each episode, we'll explore the reasons why founders, CEOs, CTOs, and CMOs of web content development companies need CMS systems to thrive in the digital landscape. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind successful website management, content creation, and seamless user experiences. Here's your host, Jonathan Ames.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, a podcast by ButterCMS. Today, we're delighted to welcome Emma Valentiner, the head of SEO at Threecolts. And did I say that right?
You did. You nailed it. Great job.
All right. Welcome, Emma. Tell us a little bit about your background. What are some of the favorite projects you've worked on in SEO?
Oh man, it's really hard to choose. So I've been doing marketing since the mid 2000s. We won't do the math, but it's been a minute. And I moved into SEO focus. Like I started as a copywriter and moved into an SEO focus in around 2016. And yeah, a ton of really fun client projects. I think one of my favorites, and I think it was just the timeliness of it, was helping a company that does software for laboratories. So how they manage their samples and testing and all of this stuff, very complicated stuff. And they helped, this was during COVID, and they helped get the testing set up for the entire LA school district so that the schools were able to go back into some kind of session. And so to be involved with that and to be able to see their visibility online really helped make those kinds of partnerships happen was really rewarding.
Wow. So there's a different business objective. Instead of like sales here, it's like we want awareness. So people come in, they know what to do. Yeah, that's one of the things that was interesting as we were talking about topics for this podcast. I think that the idea of tying business objectives to SEO, really, really important. And the more as marketers or people working on websites, we know how to tie what we're doing into the overall business objectives. A, the easier it is to get funding from whoever's higher up. B, the easier it is to tie in with different departments who have to help us on that project. Because now, we may each have our own objectives, but if we have an overarching business objective that we both tie into in the project, great. Now everyone wants to collaborate on that. So yeah, really important topic. Yeah. So tell us about this as far as business objectives and SEO. Why did you select that? What's been your experience with it?
My experience with it has been, you'll find the range of different SEO understanding and implementation when you work with clients. And I think especially for businesses to have SEO kind of at the table for those discussions on business objectives, I think I'm obviously very biased, but I think SEO kind of elevates that conversation. I think it's so powerful to understand the words that people are searching to find information about the product that you sell or the service that you sell. And I think that can really tie into marketing messaging, content on your website, how you represent your business, your software, your product elsewhere online. So I do think SEO has a really important piece of the puzzle there. I think in terms of business objectives, yes, tell me what your goals are, and then I can kind of reverse engineer my SEO campaign to fit those goals. If you're wanting to expand your business into a new geo, maybe you are US based and you want to expand into Canada, I can start getting that SEO work going. So I can start building out pages that talk about, maybe it's Canadian software, Canadian products, and start building in that search content. Not just search content. I do want to be careful there. I do feel all content on your website is valuable. We don't just write it to perform well. But I think being able to kind of get the ball rolling, especially on larger initiatives, is really helpful because you can kind of, once those things kind of start to fall into place, you're already going to have an SEO footprint there. So maybe I'm wanting to sell, used books in Moncton or something. I can write some blog posts about that and kind of pre-target it. It's also a really great way to kind of test an audience. Like maybe we're thinking about rolling out a new feature. And so maybe I want to do a little bit of, SEO content around that new feature. Like, hey, is this, search filter going to be helpful for you? And kind of get a feel for, what does the search volume look like? Are people even looking for something like that? Is there a cost per click value behind it? And so from that, I can kind of really get a feel for, is this going to be valuable from a search perspective? And very often things that are valuable from a search perspective do have a measurable monetary value for the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you mentioned something important there, is that search can even be helpful in your research and development stage when you're trying to understand what are the objectives that we should go after. Because typically executives will have thrown at them a bunch of data, and then they have to make a decision based on that about what those business objectives are going to be. We have several different options. Which do we pick? So SEO really has something to bring to the table here in planning your content ahead of that and just saying, there's an opportunity here, there's an opportunity there. This one maybe has greater volume, or this one's getting more competitive. There's a lot of opportunity there, even at the research phase.
And I have to share this one example because it's so on the money. I had a client I worked with years ago that wanted to launch some kind of a new product. And I forget the details now, but it's some kind of a new product. And they had decided on a name. And it was a marketing product. They never Googled it. So when I went to do the research to find out, like, oh, hey, what's the competitive landscape look like here? Who's ranking on page 1? Unfortunately, there was a marketing company that was ranking for the term. It was their name. And they had terrible, terrible reputation, just people bashing it all over the place. So I had to, kind of go back to the stakeholders and say, listen, I know that you guys love the name. You've already started working on some brand assets for it. But I think that we would be fighting a really long uphill battle if we wanted to try and, take over that name, that entity.
Yeah, excellent story. Yeah, great illustration of that point. So what are some of these business objectives that, maybe in certain sectors like B2B or e-commerce or SaaS that are different that you've seen out there that could tie in with SEO?
I would say, I think definitely product roadmap is a really interesting one to kind of factor SEO in on. It's really interesting, when you're working with like a SaaS software, for example, and seeing kind of what the other companies in that same space are doing. And you get a really good feel for that when you start to look at, I like to use SEMrush, but Ahrefs does this really well too. There's lots of tools, but I really like to see like what their latest keywords are. So what are they trying to move the needle on? And it gives you a really good kind of like sneak peek at maybe what their strategy is. So I think just in terms of competitive marketplace, it's a really interesting place to kind of insert SEO and say, okay, what are the competitors doing? It's also really beneficial to see what they're not doing. So where are those areas in the market that are kind of like medium competition? If we're looking at maybe, a couple different features are being looked at for development, maybe one of them very high competition in the SEO landscape, but maybe another one is a little bit more medium competition. So I'm going to get page 1 rankings for those related terms faster and likely get some more brand awareness around that product or service much faster if I'm going for something that's a bit less competitive. So that can really, like SEO can really help with that conversation.
Yeah, that's a great example for SaaS, product roadmap. What features should we go after? What features are getting traction and thus searches right now? And how are our competitors going after those particular features? Yeah, great examples. What about for, say, e-commerce or B2B?
E-commerce is a fun one because it's very often with e-commerce, there is some kind of a seasonality, right? You don't buy swimsuits typically in December. Most people don't. Some people that go to St. Bart's, and of course they're buying them. But for most people, they're probably buying them in, say, March or April. It is really interesting from, using Google Trends and seeing kind of what that is, but also using SEO to be well positioned when that season happens. I think that's one of my favorite things to do. I worked for a company that did large scale events. So they kind of helped people travel to things like the Fiji Pro Surfing competition or Burning Man Festival in Nevada. I think it's in Nevada. I don't want to get that wrong. I'll lose my hipster cred. But yeah, so things like that. So what we would do is we would create content and we would optimize the site content we already had 2 or 3 months out before the event. So when the event actually happened, we would be on page 1, and we ended up outranking, like, I think Red Bull was the sponsor of Fiji Pro. We outranked them. So really it was really fun to kind of take that idea of like timeliness. And I think this is really great for e-commerce. If you're selling swimsuits, obviously you want to be ranking really well for swimsuit terms when it hits, April or May. And so I think kind of figuring that in when you're building out content and looking at those keywords that you might want to rank for, I think it's a really good thing to kind of keep that in mind of the seasonality of it. We know that it takes, a couple of months to see some really nice traction on page 1. So getting out ahead of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great example for e-commerce. There's, in fact, seasonality in a lot of industries, even B2B. In our industry in SaaS, there are certain buying cycles based upon ends of fiscal years and vacation time and things like
quarterly
that.
Jumps you can see in analytics. Yes. It's like, people are looking at their budgets because we got a lot of traffic coming in.
Exactly. So those kind of things, SEO really can help in the process of determining when to do things. And just like you said, a couple months out, SEO is a slower moving project. It's not something like pay-per-click where you can just turn it on and off typically. But when you're thinking of, so you're doing this research, you're thinking of making your plans here. How do you find a balance between, okay, there's opportunity for this, we could get traffic in, and picking those keywords that really are authentic to your brands, that you're going to communicate well on? Where's the balance in those two?
It is a balance. And I don't think it's a perfect thing. I think sometimes you have to sacrifice brand voice a little bit. I know I'm going to get hate mail for this, but it's true. Sometimes you do. Like if your goal is to drive traffic to your website, that should be the focus rather than maybe focusing so much on a quippy message. And I say this specifically for newer businesses. With new websites, I think it's more important to get traffic, like momentum going, get some traffic going to the website than it is to really name what your tagline, like nail what your tagline is. I think this priority should really be on visibility. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, especially as a small company, you're trying to build up that SEO equity is what I would call it, where you have rank in certain areas and you can show that you're an authority in those things you're talking about. And it's kind of like telling a great joke with an audience of one. How great is a joke?
One person loved it.
Yeah, one person really loved it. That's great. But is it going to keep your business going? Yeah. Really important stuff. So let's go into the tactics now of it. So if you're wanting to go down to, we're creating content now, how do you integrate? What are the tactics that you would use to be able to create good content that fits your SEO, that is also readable and usable for your reader? Because a lot of stuff out there with AI right now that is coming out. Yeah, it's terrible. It may rank well for a while, but you think. Yeah, and that's the thing is that how long will it rank if the conversion rate's really poor?
Yeah. I have not the most happiest of news for folks that are really keen on AI content, and I'm sorry, but I don't think I don't think it's as simple as pressing a button and then publishing it to your blog. We're just not there yet. So I do have some feelings about it.
No, I think that's a good thing to bring out. So tell us why you feel that.
From what I have seen, and I've used a lot of different tools, and I think these tools are really amazing used in the right way. So I've used Jasper, Copy AI, ChatGPT, Gemini. I've used Content Shake from SEMrush. So I haven't, there's been a consistent effort to make this work. You're still going to find errors in what feels like factual content. So, statistics or names, or this company was founded in 1901. And it's like, I'm writing this for a company that's starting today. So little errors like that if you're not paying attention to, if you go ahead and publish it on your website and somebody reads that, and it's like they might know the topic, or they might know that you just opened your doors, that comes across as like, did they not even read it? Like, nobody likes to see a typo. And especially when you're a business selling a product to someone, if you can't pay attention to the copy on your website, how can I trust that you're going to pay as much attention or more to what the work you're doing for me? So I think that's like really kind of where that factors in terms of AI. The other piece of the puzzle is that it doesn't create anything new. It regurgitates what it's found. And very typically with Google, we see that content that provides new information, or maybe information that is known, but it is presented in a better way or a unique way, that tends to get more visibility, certainly in terms of page one, but also engagement. And that's such an important part of SEO, is that Google does track those page engagement metrics. So how long do people spend on your website? Are they reading your content? Are they going to other places on your website? Are they bouncing? And so the more that you can send those signals to Google of like, hey, they're finding good information here, the better. And I just feel like AI content it's not quite there yet in terms of that engagement factor. And then I have also tested it, and I've just not been that thrilled with what I've seen. The majority AI content, maybe a little bit of editing here and there just to clean up the messes. But it's just it doesn't rank high. It doesn't drive a lot of traffic. People don't tend to engage with it. They're like, engagement times are around a minute or less. And that's just like, when I compare that to human written content, we're seeing 2 minutes and higher of people engaging with human written content. So it's just like, when I'm having to make that call, it's like, well, let's get a human.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And especially that testing that you've done to validate it. This is a key. If you're looking for a good SEO, look for someone who's doing their own tests of what works and what doesn't. But yes, so AI, I think everyone now has been kind of trying it, but there's still that you can do it badly. I think you can use it well. It just really depends on how you use it. And you bring up excellent points as far as the quality and your own tests, showing double the engagement time. That's huge, huge to have someone stay twice as long. Imagine if you had a store and you had two displays, one that was made by an AI and one that was made by, let's say, a human. And people coming into the first display stayed twice as long as the second display. Would you feel like you're more likely to get sales out of the first or the second? Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah. And I do think there's such good use cases for it. I really love to use it. I create content specs for any piece of content, whether it's a piece of web content, a blog article, and it's, kind of like, I can hand it off to the writer and say, this is exactly what I want. And for things like research, for things like creating outlines, figuring out, hey, what keywords might be a good fit here? Like, for that, I find it to be really helpful. I also find it to be helpful for using it for FAQ content. I think that's really fun, like dropping in an article, hey, what haven't I covered in this that people might have questions about, and seeing what it generates there. So there are definitely interesting use cases for it. I'm a fan if I'm continuing to try to make it work for me. But yeah, not quite there yet in terms of the longer form articles that really drive, traffic for the long term in terms of SEO.
Yeah, really good points. So you mentioned there the importance of measuring engagement. Let's talk about how you measure the content's effectiveness in SEO. What are the metrics you go after? Obviously, there's a lot of different metrics. Which ones do you prioritize?
We really love our data in SEO land. I'm a huge fan of Google Analytics. We all got used to 4 now, and they're probably going to change it again, but I really like it. And I really like to look for those page engagement numbers. I want to see like how engaged are people with the content, and are they staying on the site? That's one of the biggest things for me. I also want to see organic traffic going up. That's another big one. And especially that new user count. I'm always very happy when somebody returns to the blog because they found great information earlier. But if it's those getting in new users that I think really shows the impact of SEO efforts. So that's a really big one. And then of course, I use SEMrush or Ahrefs. They're both great. There's lots of other tools too. Shout out to Ubersuggest as well. But I really look for rankings, positions, gains, specifically page one. And depending on the industry, I could even be focused just on that top 3. And then I also want to see obviously traffic increasing there, which those are tend to be estimates. And then I also want to see that traffic value number increase. And the reason why I'm so keen on traffic value, and that's specific for SEMrush, but I think other tools have similar metrics in there. But that's showing me that like the positions that I'm on, for a competitor to have the same visibility as I have organically, they would need to pay that amount a month to keep up with me. So if I'm seeing $37K a month, that's what they would have to pay in ad costs to have the same visibility. So I really want to see that number specifically go up, because the higher that is, the more it's a combination of like not having to pay Google for those ads. And I love that. But it's also those higher cost per click numbers tend to indicate keywords that are more likely to convert. So if I have a very high value, I'm sitting on a lot of keywords that are more likely to convert the people I'm looking for. So those are a few of the metrics that I am looking at probably on I want to say a weekly basis, but sometimes it's a daily basis.
Yeah. No, that's a great metric, and one I haven't heard a whole lot of when I've been talking to SEOs. I think that one of the ways you could tie that back into those business objectives is you could take those numbers and show those to executives and say, this is the value of the SEO, because sometimes you have a long sales cycle. We're in B2B SaaS, 3 to 6 month sales cycle for an enterprise to choose a piece of software and put it in place. So in between then, you're wondering, are these keywords that I'm bringing people in on, are they really going to convert? And by looking at that traffic value number, you could take that back and say, hey, here's what the results are after the first couple of months. This is what we would have to pay to be able to get this kind of traffic in, just as a kind of a leading indicator of value there.
Yeah. And it's also nice, I think, a lot of folks, especially in SaaS, are used to pay-per-click. We're paying for ads. You turn the faucet on and you get leads, and then you turn it off when you need to. And I really like, and I think this is probably indicative of me working at a lot of startups with a very small budget, is that I want to get as much juice out of the squeeze as I can. So if we're running a paid campaign, I want to know as quickly as possible, and paid's a good way to get fast information. What keywords are converting? What kind of language in the, like underneath that headline? What kind of things are people resonating with? Are they, is it 100% guaranteed, satisfaction guaranteed? Is it, 30-day free trial? All of those things that are working for ads, I want to take and work back into my organic campaign. So if I know, hey, we get a ton of traffic that converts from this keyword, like, inventory management software, I'm going to want to make sure that I'm sitting on page 1 for inventory management software and a bunch of variations for it, because I know that's something that resonates with people that are buying the product.
Yeah, there really is a great interaction between paid and SEO if you do it right. They both can help each other, and doing one without the other doesn't make a whole lot of sense in most cases. So great points. Any other tips you'd bring up to people, things that they could try right away based on what you've been telling us?
I'm a huge fan of best practices. I know that you'll hear every single year, you're going to hear SEO is dead. It's not dead. I've been doing it for a bunch of years now, and it's still around. And so it is like, I would just recommend everyone to just, Ahrefs has really great resources online. So does SEMrush. So does Neil Patel and his team. Like, there's a lot of really great information on the basics. Backlinko is another good one that I love. But really great information on just the basics. If you just do the basics right, so make sure that you have a good target keyword that fits what you're trying to sell. So if somebody did a search for, say I'm selling running shoes, and somebody did a search for running shoes, if they come to my page, are they going to find what they're looking for? So I really like to kind of take that into account. So always very important, but also the page elements, page title. Do you have your target keyword in there? Meta description. Did you write one? Is it different from every other page on your website? Because it should be. Are you using one H1? Or are you using 5 H1s as a style choice rather than what it's for, which is an element? So those kinds of things, like those really basic fundamentals of optimizing a page. I'd also highly recommend just using Google. I know that sounds really nuts, but I love to do searches on Google for things I'm working on because it tells me in real time who they think is relevant for that keyword. So I can say, okay, here's the keywords that are being mentioned. Here's some other common keywords that are mentioned in the meta description. I probably want to mention that. Here's the angle that they're taking with, trying to increase their CTR. Maybe there's a ton of video or news content that gives me some information too. So if I'm creating a long form article and I see there's a lot of video results coming up, I'm going to want to maybe include a video clip of my own in my article. So it just kind of gives you some parameters to follow. And SEO, I think not a lot of people like to talk about SEO, which I find weird. So I love podcasts that talk about SEO, but people find it to be really overwhelming and it has a little bit of a reputation of the dark arts. And I'm just saying, I know it's true.
Yeah. No, I laugh because I totally identify with that. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's two parts. One, it's the black box feeling of Google that they don't really tell you exactly how they're doing what they're doing, and they're always changing it. And I think also it's that just like anything where it's not necessarily clear to the layman, there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there.
A lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has a bad reputation as an industry. And I totally get it. We use a lot of verbiage. There has been a lot of really funky tactics over the years. But just doing those basics of optimizing your pages, do a Google search for like SEO content optimization tips. And even just that alone, you're going to be in such a better place than like most of your competitors. Like if you just do that and take, like once a week, take a page on your site, just optimize it. Make sure the H1 looks good. Make sure it's formatted nicely so people want to engage with it. And then just do that. You can do that same with building out your content. So maybe you're selling a software and you want to have all of your feature pages listed. Just build those out week over week. Pay attention to what the competitors are doing, how long their content is. That's still a pretty big factor. But I would say don't be intimidated by it. It is like once you get those best practices and you play around with them a little bit, it's a lot easier than you think. And it's really, really rewarding to do a search for something that you optimized your site for 2 weeks ago and see yourself on page 1.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I'll put in my pitch from the CMS angle. A lot of the way you set up your CMS can encourage those best practices that you're talking about.
Yes.
You can set up your CMS to have the right fields for your content team to put in. You can make sure that you don't stylistically use multiple H1s, those kind of things. You can really set those up so that your team can be successful, and it's easy to do that. So yeah, really important points. So, people, I'm sure listening to this, some of them are in situations where they work with an SEO agency. You work at an SEO agency. Tell us a little bit about Threecolts. Where can people find you? What do you guys do? And who do you do it best for?
Awesome. So I work with Threecolts. We are actually an e-commerce software provider. We build software solutions for e-commerce sellers. So this is folks that side hustlers on Amazon to enterprise businesses that sell all over the world. And it's different kind of software components for inventory management or, product sourcing, kind of things like that. So very, very cool product, and obviously a super dynamic industry because e-commerce has changed so significantly. Like we've seen the rise of Amazon, and now we have Alibaba's in the mix, Walmart Marketplaces in the mix, Target has launched. So it just continues to expand. So it's a really exciting industry to kind of be a part of from this side of it, because there is such a need for really great software. The stuff that you kind of get out of the box with a lot of these platforms just don't give you the level of data that you need to run a business, especially if it's as it grows. So I think it's been a really exciting trip for sure.
Yeah. Well, tell us, where can people find Threecolts online?
We have a lot of websites, but the number one you need to remember is threecolts.com. Right. We also have product standalone sites, and that's a SEO story for a whole different day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, threecolts.com. We're also on all of the major social networks, so you can find us wherever you happen to hang out.
Awesome. Well, tell us if I always ask my guests this. If you could go back in a time machine, meet yourself at the beginning of your career, and tell yourself one thing that you've learned that you didn't know then, what would it be?
That the detours have a lot of value. Yeah, I have kind of found my way to SEO through starting as a copywriter, working in marketing, and mostly healthcare focused at the time. And then I kind of, went off on a startup trip for a while that was really, really exciting. But all of these kind of adventures, and I think just because I kept hustling and, kind of networking with really great people and getting to build really cool projects with people, just all of these other opportunities kind of like dominoes kind of fell into place. So, it's really it's understandable, I would say, to look at your career path and be like, oh, but I expected to go that way and I'm going this way. And should I do that? Yeah, take the detour. If it sounds interesting, take the detour, because you just never know what that is going to teach you that you'll need later in your career.
Awesome. That's great. Great advice. And where do you find inspiration? Where do you find those new ideas or fresh perspectives?
Oh man, it's everywhere. I have gotten sucked into TikTok. I fought it for the longest time. I really did for like 2 years. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And then all the, the news about like, maybe we're going to ban it. And then I was like, I should probably get in on this and just see what it's about before it goes away. So TikTok is a really fun place, but also, all the normal kind of SEO glitterati. So we've got like Search Engine Land. We've got Gary Vee is always putting out really interesting stuff. So there's always a plethora of inspiration to be found, like wherever you hang out. Like even if you're hanging out just in, you're just on X or you're just on Facebook, you can still find groups there that are talking about, whatever you're interested in. And like, I wouldn't try and pinhole yourself to being interested in one thing. I think it's okay to be multi-passionate. So if you like cars and also bird watching, do those things.
There you go. No, great inspirational ideas there. Emma, really appreciate you taking the time to talk and share some of your experiences, some of the projects you've worked on. Really great ideas came out of this episode. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cutting Edge Web Content Development is brought to you by ButterCMS. To find out how you can build better with Butter, stop wasting dev time, and free your marketers from your legacy CMS, visit ButterCMS.com. Also, make sure to search for Cutting Edge Web Content Development in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at ButterCMS, thank you for listening.